Hello everyone, I am Dr. Saubhagya, Professor HOD, Department of Ophthalmology, the Oxford Institute of Medical Sciences, Attibele, Bangalore. Today I am going to speak to you about the digits of the eyelids. I have divided the digits of the eyelids into two groups, in which the first division I will be talking about the digits of the eyelids as congenital anomalies and inflammatory conditions, and in the second division we will study about the digits of the eyelids under the headings of the abnormalities of the eyelids and the neoplastic conditions. As we all know, the digits of the eyelids are congenital, that they are the abnormalities of the eyelids which are present since birth, like a coloboma of the eyelids, dermal cyst, and etc. And other abnormalities which are acquired due to inflammatory conditions. It could be due to trauma of the eye or the neoplastic conditions, and the abnormalities are due to sequelae of the eyelids following the diseases. Coloboma of the eyelid is a congenital abnormality which is a rare condition. It is present since birth. It is a full thickness triangular defect in the eyelid, with the base of the eyelid in the upper eyelid margin. The defect. The base of the defect is in the lid margin. Upper eyelid is commonly affected, and this can be associated with the other congenital abnormalities like dermal cyst and preocular appendages, in which condition we call it as golden horse syndrome. This is the picture showing the coloboma of the eyelid. You can see here a triangular defect in the upper eyelid. These are the pictures showing the coloboma of the eyelid associated with the preauricular lymph nodes, and also the dermoid at the limbus, which is a classical feature found in cases of the golden horse syndrome. Epicanthus. This is the lid over the lid. That means a fold of skin extra present over the upper eyelid. This is commonly covers the medial part of the eyelid, and it may disappear as the child grows. Is commonly seen in the chubby children, and very common anomaly of the eyelids, and rarely it needs the cosmetic corrections. So you can see in this picture there is an extra fold of skin covering the normal eyelid. This is called as epicanthal fold, which is extending from the medial canthus to the upper eyelid. Nearly middle of the upper eyelid it's extending, and it will disappear as the child grows. Congenital ptosis is the common lid abnormality that is found in the normal population. It can be unilateral or bilateral drooping of the upper eyelid. It can be of the mild, moderate or severe degree depending upon the developmental anomaly of the levator palpebrae superioris. This is present since birth, and in these cases we can see there is absence of the lid crease. Supratarsal crease will be absent, where the levator palpebrae action is indicated by retracting the skin of the supratarsal zone, and also the balding of the upper eyelid will be present, and the superior lid covers more than 1/6 of the upper cornea, and the child will show the elevated position to his face to see the objects, and you can see when the child looks down, the lid lag or the lid is not synchronizing with that of the eyeball to the down gaze. That means the lid is tight, and it stands behind when the child is looking down. As this condition is due to the weakness of the levator palpebrae superioris or poor development of the levator palpebrae superioris, the procedure involves the strengthening of the levator palpebrae superioris by torso-conjunctival mullerectomy, that's called as Fastenella servate operation from the conjunctival side. If it is a mild degree of the ptosis, if the levator palpebrae action is very poor, or the then in those conditions we have to do frontalis slitting operation. If it's a moderate condition of the ptosis, then we can do levator resection. This picture shows the left sided ptosis, which is covering nearly half of the cornea. This is a moderate degree of ptosis. This is a case of bilateral ptosis. You can see so the right upper lid ptosis is of very mild degree. Palpebral aperture is around 8 to 10 millimeter. Left the ptosis is more than that of the right side. That is the moderate to severe type of ptosis in the left side. The dystrichiosis is a presence of extra row of eyelashes. Normally we can see about 2 to 3 row of eyelashes in the upper lid and 1 to 2 row of eyelashes in the lower eyelid. But in these cases, other than this normal row of eyelashes, there will be an extra row of eyelashes which are present in the posterior border of the lid or the medial canthal portion of the lid or some other portion of the eyelid, which causes bushy eyelashes or causes misdirection towards the eyeball, causing the trichiasis, and also in the cosmetic abnormality created as they are having a bushy extra row of eyelashes. We can treat these conditions by epilation. Epilation is the removal of the eyelashes. Either it is done by electrocautery or the chemical cautery method, or we can do even with the laser coagulation of the hair follicles. The cryptophthalmos is a rare anomalous condition of the eyelids in which the eyelids will not get separated. They remain fused and they are continuous with that of the skin of the temporal part of the face. In these cases, the eyeball will not be exposed at all. So on dissection, we can see the eyeball hidden inside the eyelids. Microblepharon is the abnormally the short eyelids. Normally the width of the eyelids is around horizontal width is around 25 to 29 millimeter, but in these cases it will be reduced to 15 or 10 millimeter length, and they are abnormally small. They can be associated with the cryptophthalmos or the anophthalmos, and also they can be associated usually very small, and but they may be absent also. Then we call it as ablepharon. Other congenital abnormalities of the eyelid include ectropion, entropion, lid retraction, blepharophimosis, dystophias, such conditions. Entropion means inward turning of the eyelid margin, ectropion means outward turning of the eyelid margin, lid retraction means the lid is not able to synchronize with that of the eyeball downward gaze and remains behind. And absence of the eyelids and lid, the cryptophthalmos. So far we are talking about the congenital abnormalities of the eyelid. Now we will come to the acquired disorders of the eyelids. The eyelid disorders of the acquired nature can be divided into disorders of the lid margin and lid inflammatory conditions, neoplastic conditions, and traumatic conditions. The easily identifiable and common and the complaint of the subjects, whatever the pathology underlying is the edema of the lid or the puffiness of the lid. This can be of the due to various conditions of the eye. It can be an active inflammatory conditions of the eye and the eyelids, or it can be due to the passive edema of the eyelids. The active inflammatory conditions which can cause the edema of the eyelids are the inflammations of the lid, like the hordeolum internum, externum, erysipelas, cellulitis of the lid axis, and inflammations of the conjunctiva like acute conjunctivitis or allergic conjunctivitis, or in cases of the acute iridocyclitis and in case of acute congestive glaucoma. In all these conditions, we find the lid edema, which is due to the associated inflammatory conditions in the eyelids or in the conjunctiva or the eyeball. Otherwise also we can get the lid edema whenever there is an active pathology is absent in the lid, but pathology is somewhere else in the forehead or in the vertex anterior to the anterior cranial fossa. This is due to the passive progression or drainage of the fluid from the forehead region on the vertex region due to the continuity of the submuscular areolar tissue into the eyelids. We can find that there is edema in the eyelids. The eyelid edema can also be passive. It's an indicator. Whenever we see there is a puffiness of the lids in an individual, we have a systemic pathology or the local pathology, and we find there is early morning a puffiness of the lids and it resolves by afternoon and evening, and it's a progressive condition. Then we have to suspect the systemic abnormalities like the cardiac failure, or it can be due to thrombosis, or it can be head injury, or it can be due to cavernous sinus thrombosis. Other abnormalities like beriberi we have to rule out. This is the picture showing the edema of the eyelids, that puffiness of the eyelids in a lady bilaterally and symmetrical. This may be due to any systemic problem. It can be found in case of congestive cardiac failure or renal failure. Blepharitis is a condition which is called whenever there is inflammations in the eyelid margins. This condition, there will be the lid margin inflammations or collections of the crust at the roots of the eyelashes, or it can be the collections of the powdery scales at the roots of the eyelashes. We clinically divide the blepharitis into two major clinical conditions depending upon the anatomical position of the inflammation. It can be anterior or it can be posterior. It's anterior when it involves the eyelashes and the anterior border of the lid, and when it involves the posterior border of the lid margin and the meibomian gland area, we call it as a posterior type of blepharitis. The inflammation of the lid margin can be of various etiology. The anterior blepharitis is of two types again. It can be the squamous type and ulcerative type. In squamous type, the inflammation is characterized by the collections of the scaly lesions at the roots of the eyelashes. They are like powdery lesions. When we see with the slit lamp, we can see the collections of the dust-like things at the roots of the eyelashes, which are easily removable, and the underlying surface of the lid margin will be clear. And so more so and the other type is ulcerative type of blepharitis, in which we find that there is the crust are so much glued together, matting of the eyelashes will be there, and on the removal of this crust, the raw surface will be there in the lid margin, which can bleed also. This is called as ulcerative blepharitis. This is due to active inside the roots of the eyelashes by the Staphylococcus and Streptococcus. The other type of the anterior blepharitis is the parasitic type, in which the parasites will be mm, logged onto the roots of the eyelashes, and various types of parasites are found. There are Demodex folliculorum and Pityriasis palpebrorum and Blepharitis acarica. These are the pictures showing the parasites infestation to the eyelid margin. When they are infested into the lid margin, they hug the eyelashes. This will cause clogging of the eyelashes. When they clog the eyelashes, some of them will be looking like a crabs holding a palpebrorum. There is arachis, and the other one is arachis palpebrorum. You can see here crab blows and the arachis palpebrorum we call it as. This is the picture showing the squamous type of blepharitis, in which we can see there are the scales of the scales collected at the roots of the eyelashes. On the removal of these scales, we can find that this area is not having any underlying epithelial lesions, and roots eye follicles are free. The treatment for this condition includes the cleaning with normal saline or the warm salt water or soda bicarbonate, and the prevention of the further recurrence by giving a steam bath to the face, and also these people can have the associated scalp dermatitis. That is there can be the dandruff in the scalp, which needs to be addressed and treated. This picture shows the left sided ptosis, which is covering nearly half of the cornea. This is a moderate degree of ptosis. The sequelae of the ulcerative blepharitis is quite significant if they are left untreated in the initial stages, and they can cause scarring and retraction of the eyelids, and misdirection of the eyelashes, and the other pathologies in the lid margins. So they can give rise to a chronic conjunctivitis, because this will act as an infective source for the conjunctiva, and also it can infect the cornea, giving rise to the punctate keratitis or corneal ulcer and such conditions. And this responds very poorly to the treatment, because the source of infection is the lid margin itself. So first of all, we have to take in such cases we have to take the culture of the discharge, and then we have to treat the accordingly. If the treatment is not given in the initial stages and the scarring is very dense, it can cause the retraction of the lid margins to outward or into the inward directions, causing ectropion and entropion. Cicatricial, ectropion and entropion will occur. And also there can be thickening and hypertrophy of the lid margin because of constant inflammatory action, and this we call it as tylosis. It causes a drooping of the eyelid, mechanical drooping of the eyelid, causing the secondary ptosis. The treatment of the ulcerative blepharitis is very important, as we know the complications what all we face if we don't address initially. So needs aggressive treatment, wherein we have to clear the lid margins of the crust with a saline or use of soda bicarb, in which we have to dissolve a bit of salt pinch or soda bicarbonate in a warm water, and then in that we have to soak the cotton, and then with that cotton ball we can moisten the lid margin, and slowly we have to remove the crust. After removing the crust, we have to apply locally the ointment, and broad spectrum antibodies which acts all against the gram positive and gram negative organisms. Most often it's due to staphylococcal infections, and the infection the eyelid margins should be kept hygienic, washed with the baby shampoo prepared by the Johnson or some other mild shampoo. After the infection resolves, a simple daily habit of scrubbing the eyelid margins with the um, salt water helps in preventing the further infections, and one should avoid rubbing of the eyes or keep touching the eyelids with the unwashed hands. Proper treatment ensures a speedy recovery and prevents the long-term complications. Microblepharon is the abnormally the short eyelids. Normally, the width of the eyelids is around horizontal width is around 25 to 29 millimeter, but in these cases it will be reduced to 15 or 10 millimeter length, and they are abnormally small. They can be associated with the cryptophthalmos or the anophthalmos, and also they can be associated usually very small, and but they may be absent also. Then we call it as ablepharon. This is the picture showing the meibomianitis, in which there is collections of the white material at the openings of the meibomian glands openings. This is the meibomianitis, and in this case we can see the posterior border of the lid margin is inflamed, and we can't distinguish the openings of the meibomian glands. This is a case of posterior meibomianitis with acute inflammatory conditions involving the lid margin. This is the inflammation involving the glands in the skin of the eyelids. It may be either the Zeiss gland, Moll's gland, or this is an acute suppurative inflammation of the hair follicles. This is the common condition which we call by the term strie by the common man's terminology. The etiology of this condition is as it is a very common condition which is found in most of the cases, and it can be easily treated, and it will have a wide varieties of the etiologies also. This is commonly seen in people who are poorly hygienic or people who works with a dusty environment, and people who are having the immune compromised stage. The other factors which contribute to the Zeiss gland inflammations are diabetes mellitus, or it could be the uncorrected refractive error, or people with the immune compromised state, as in people who are having a long term steroid treatment, and also the patients who are on anti-mitotic therapy. Such conditions, we have to revise the condition and then concentrate on the systemic therapy also to prevent the further recurrence of the common etiological factor here is the Staphylococcus aureus infection, which is a common commensal in the eyelid and the surface of the eye and the conjunctival socket, but it takes up the upper hand and starts giving rise to manifest infections in these cases of some predisposed conditions. The clinical features of the hordenum externum include usually the patient presents with the history of pain, redness, and the localized swelling which is painful on touch. There can be associated systemic presentations of discomfort, malaise. On examination, the signs will be localized area of the hyperemia, swelling with a diffuse margins, and which can sometimes it can show the eyelash pointing at the root of the eyelashes or at the surface of the lesions. When it leads to the abscess formation, it can present as a pus pointing at the lid margin related to the affected cilia. Treatment of the hordenum externum includes conservative line of management, wherein we can advise the patient to give a local hot compress or steam bath to the face, and we can start administering local antibiotic and anti-inflammatory non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs, and also we can advise the patient to have the systemic analgesics if the pain is intolerable to the patient. If these lesions are found recurrent in a patient, so we may have to use a systemic antibiotics and systemic anti-inflammatory drugs also. When the individual has got too much of discomfort like pain, we have to use systemic analgesics to relieve the pain. If the condition progresses to the abscess stage and also it's not resolving the medical management, then we have to do incision and drainage of the pus from the lesion. By various methods we can drain the pus. If it is pointing through the hair follicle, we can plug the eyelashes and put pressure onto the lesion, it will express out. If the lesion is away from the hair follicle, and we have to put an incision to drain the pus. While putting the incision, we have to take caution to put the horizontal incision, not the vertical incision. If you put an horizontal incision, the scar will merge with the skin folds. If it is a vertical incision, the scar will have a puckering, thereby the lid scar will be visible throughout a life and cosmetic disfigurement will be there. Chalazion or the tarsal meibomian cyst. This is a chronic non-suppurative inflammatory condition involving the meibomian gland, in which there will be a gradual progressive increase in the size of the painless swelling in the eyelid. It will have the following characteristic features. There will be a diffuse swelling in the eyelid, which is free from the skin. That is, on plucking the skin over the lesion, you can see the lesion slips under the examining fingers, and this is called as the slipping of the lesion under the finger. It's not adherent to the lid skin. Because of this, the sign we call this condition hailstone. That means while picking up of the hailstones, it slips under the while examining. Like that, this lesion also is not. It cannot be held through the lid. Once it is painless and gradually increases in size, and it can cause drooping of the lid because of the weight of the lesions, and because of the weight of the lesions, it can cause pressure onto the cornea also. It can give rise to the blurred vision. Symptoms of the chalazion: sometimes it may go unnoticed, or some patients will present with the single or the multiple swellings in the one lid or both the lids, of the one eye or all the lids, which are slowly increasing in size, and they are painless. They can be single or multiple, as I've already told you, and they are not causing any pain to the individuals. These individuals may have the presentations of the visual blurred vision when the lid is drooping against the cornea and the visual axis, and also when it's compressing on the eyelid, the compressing on the cornea causing astigmatic error. We can find this lesions are causing astigmatic error, and the vision is distorted or blurred vision. The clinical course of these chalazions, if it is left untreated, as I've already told you, because of the weight of the lesion, they can cause a pressure on the cornea causing astigmatic error, and because of the lesion is in the upper lid and causes the undersurface of the lesion can undergo excoriations or ulcerations and causing protrusion of the lesion into the congenital socket like a cauliflower lesion. If it is left untreated for a long term period, it can undergo meibomian cell carcinoma or meibomian cell adenoma. The pathogenesis of the chalazion is a low grade inflammation by the organisms which are less virulent and causing the clogging or the blocking of the duct of the meibomian glands. Because of that, there will be the secreted material accumulated within the gland, causing gradual increase in the size. The treatment of the chalazion, if it is very small, we can try conservative line of management, in which we can put topical steroid, antibiotic drops, and observe the lesion with the hot fomentation or steam bath to the face. If the lesion is not resolving, if it is very small, we can try intralesional corticosteroids also, like triamcinolone. If the resolution does not occur, we can even try diathermy to the lesions. If it is a marginal chalazion, it is better treated by diathermy, wherein we can puncture the opening of the duct, thereby the drainage of the inspissated material will come out. And if it is the lesion is not responding to conservative line of management, then we have to do incision and curettage, in which we have to put the incision on the conjunctival surface of the eye. We have to avoid the conjunctival surface by clamping the lesion with a chalazion clamp, and the lid is averted, the chalazion is fixed into the field, and then a small vertical incision is made on the surface of the lesion, avoiding the extension of the incision into the lid margin, because if the lid margin is involved in the incision, it will give rise to a permanent notching of the lid margin. If it happens at that moment, we have to do the immediate suturing of the lid margin in layers, and the content is scooped out with a chalazion scoop. And then if you want to prevent the recurrence of the chalazion, from the same side, we have to treat the cavity diathermy or with that of the this is arterial internum picture showing the meibomian gland when it's acutely infected with a pus forming organism. It presents on the congenital surface as an nodular elevation with the surrounding hyperemia and the yellowish discoloration of the surface. And this is most often it's due to local the organisms, that is the pus forming organisms like Staphylococcus aureus, and this follows the infection of the infection of the chalazion or it could be a primary suppurative inflammation of the meibomian glands. Etiology and the predisposing factors for the hordeolum internum is like that of the hordeolum externum, wherein the individuals will have a poor hygiene or the frequent rubbing of the eyes or the uncorrected refractive errors or diabetes mellitus or there may be the immune compromised state of the individuals in recurrent cases. If it is a primarily a single attack, then it can be a spontaneous that we don't it may be of no not predisposed by any other clinical conditions. The causative organisms primarily it's also staphylococcal infection of the meibomian gland, secondary infection from the infected the calagian. The clinical features of this condition include that is the hordeolum internum, pain, swelling, malaise and discomfort, discharge. There can be photophobia also. Signs are localized form red, tender swelling of the eyelid and marked edema of the eyelid will be present. The pus can point on the tarsal conjunctiva at the lid margins from the openings of the meibomian duct. The maximum point of tenderness and swelling is away from the lid margin, which is a characteristic feature because or it is in the tarsal, the glands are in the tarsal plate, the lesions are away from the lid margin. The treatment of the hordeolum internum is local antibiotics, local non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs, at fomentation, and if it progresses to localize the pus formation, and then we have to do incision and drainage, and systemic antibiotics and systemic anti-inflammatory drugs also play a role, and we have to treat the predisposing conditions to prevent the recurrences. Molluscum contagiosum is the viral infection of the skin of the eyelids, and it can be found in the other parts of the body also. This is due to infection by the molluscum virus and the also called as pox virus, and in this the lesions are multiple in number. They will have an umbilicated surface, and on the scooping we can find there is the sebaceous like material, but which will have a multiple viral bodies solidified. This gives rise to the chronic conjunctivitis if it is not treated, and the molluscum contagiosum can keep spreading to the other parts of the eyelids and other eyelid, and also other parts of the body and the face. That's why the treatment of this molluscum contagiosum is important. The complications of the molluscum contagium includes it can increase in number. Number 2, it can cause conjunctivitis and it can cause keratitis, and because it's a chronic local feeder to the cornea and conjunctiva. If this keeps happening, the individual can land up in the chronic keratoconjunctivitis and its sequelae. That's why the primary lesion should be dealt with as early as possible. The treatment for this molluscum contagium includes incised and express lesions. The interior is cauterized with the iodine or the pure carbonic acid, so that the sac of the lesions will get dried up from that of the virus, so it will not cause the spillage to the other zones. Thank you all.